This is Lessons in the Challenges of Leadership, the series that enables managers to achieve the remarkable. Podcast, video, short reads. Conceived, developed and presented by Siebert Neathling.
Who said this? Quote 1. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. Quote 2. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Quote 3. I have a dream. Quote 4. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. But if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. Most people will get at least 3 of the 4 right. Winston Churchill, John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela. These are 4 of the most important leaders in world history, and their words, at critical points in time, changed history. All 4 of these quotes are from decades ago, and yet we still know them. Communication can be incredibly impactful, and for a leader, communication is always important. So important, in fact, that I originally did not include it as one of the challenges of leadership. I think communication is the leadership meta skill that underlies success in all the other challenges, especially culture, change, collaboration, performance. But given how often leaders get communication wrong, I decided to include it. And even if you are good at it, there are ways to apply behavior science to communication that can make you even more effective. You might be in a position where you have to frequently present to groups of people. But this episode and the next few are not only about that kind of communication. You run meetings, have persuasive conversations, write emails, communicate instructions. You probably do some leadership-related communication every day of your career. I've seen some spectacular examples of leaders failing to communicate effectively. At the moment, I'm dealing with a company where, in the absence of clarity from leaders, employees are making up their own stories, while integrating a team in a large organization has not yet happened. The silence looks like incompetence, or perhaps malice. Maybe they want people to leave so they can reduce the workforce. The leaders have lost a lot of credibility in this process. Now, even when you can't give definitive answers, give the facts that are available and explain what you are doing about the situation. Another example, late last year, I worked with an organization whose owner, usually well respected, has made some rash statements about redundancies and acquisition and the performance of the company. He had said that redundancies would not happen, but then a team was made redundant just a few weeks later without further explanation as to why the original statement was wrong. Now, in the next episode, we're going to look at a great way to communicate negative information. But for now, let's get back to basics. I'm going to frame the important points in terms of a fairly fundamental communication model. If you have a message to convey, you are the sender, and the person you are communicating with is the receiver. You encode your message into a medium, like email or speech or a phone call, and the receiver decodes it. Now, there are many things that can go wrong. In communication studies, noise refers to anything that might interfere with the encoding or the decoding of the message, from physical noise to distractions, cultural misunderstandings, semantic noise. I'll give you 3 quick examples. A team member and I got frustrated with one another when he asked me for the quote that he had previously requested. I was working on finance at the time and insisted that he hadn't asked me for a quote. But it turns out he had, for a quotation to go into a newsletter. The word quote has two very different meanings, and the context caused me to assume the wrong one. That is semantic noise, when meaning is misinterpreted. Many years ago, I told a young schoolboy in Africa to look at me. He had done something wrong, and as the adult in charge of the situation, I was trying to explain to him what it was. I interpreted his not looking at me as not paying attention. I was later told by an elder that it was a sign of respect. Looking a superior in the eyes is disrespectful. That is cultural noise. And recently, I wanted to say thank you to a deaf person. My hand was slightly misplaced, and I started the Auslan gesture from under my chin, not on it. It has a very different meaning. Fortunately, in the context, the person could overcome the noise and decode my intended message. So that's noise. But all communication also happens in a context, which has a significant effect on communication. You wouldn't have a performance discussion with someone who's just received bad news about their health, for example, and you'll carefully pick a time to convey bad news to a moody boss. So it stands to reason that if we want to optimize our communication, we should optimize each of the elements in the model. And we are going to focus on the sender this time. How can you make yourself the best sender possible? Well, there are two good ideas, both well established in behavior science. The first relates to observer bias. If you're positively inclined to someone, if you like them, and they do something positive, you're likely to attribute it to internal characteristics. So if your best friend achieves something good, you're going to say, yes, she's great, isn't she? You attributed the positive to internal characteristics. And if that same person whom you like does something negative, you're likely to attribute it to external characteristics. So if she's caught having told a lie, for example, you might say, but she's been under a lot of pressure, or she felt threatened by the situation and had to lie to get out of it. So positive bias and positive experience equals internal attribution, and positive bias and negative experience equals external attribution. And the opposite is true if you are negatively inclined to someone. If you don't like them, if the colleague you find annoying is caught lying, you'll say, I told you he's not trustworthy. You attribute the negative to internal characteristics. And if that same annoying person does something positive, wins an award, say, you're likely to attribute it to external characteristics. He was lucky, or the judges were biased, or he stole someone else's idea. So negative bias, negative experience equals internal. Negative bias, positive experience equals external. Now, this is very important in communication and in human behavior generally. Let me give you an excellent example from my university life. When I was studying psychology as an undergraduate, I also worked part-time in a pizza restaurant, and I quickly learned how to earn good tips. When somebody arrives at the door, you greet them with a smile as soon as they step in, and you quickly find them a table. You make sure the table is clean. In fact, you give it an extra wipe in front of them. You then give them menus immediately, clean ones, with no sticky sauce on them. Before stepping away from their table, you ask if they would like something to drink, and you take their drinks order, and then you rush to the bar as quickly as you can. Bring the drinks as soon as they are ready. Ideally, people look up at you in surprise. If you do that, no matter what else happens during their meal, you will get a good tip. A good tip is earned in the first few minutes. Because people have a positive inclination towards you, further good service will be attributed internally. You are a great waiter. But if anything goes wrong, they are far more likely to forgive you. They'll attribute an error to kitchen mistakes or something else because you are a good waiter. I cannot overemphasize how important this is. Now, my mother would have said first impressions count. It's the same thing, but it is very profound. So what does this have to do with leadership communication? Well, the best way to enhance yourself as a sender is to generate positive observer bias. Impress the receiver from the first minute. Be on time, look the part, demonstrate evidence of preparation. I never have a meeting without showing that I'm prepared for it. You can say something like, when I prepared for this meeting, I noticed from your website that you've been with the company for 7 years already. Or, I've thought of 4 questions I'd like to ask you. Another great thing is to simply open a notebook or an iPad with some notes already written on it. Make a point of referring to your notes. Evidence of preparation is very important and a great way to generate positive observer bias. You significantly enhance the likelihood of your message being received positively. Now, of course, the quality of your content is important too. This is not about smoke and mirrors. I have seen good people fail to cut through despite good messages. There's a lot of competition for your receiver's attention and a lot of distraction. So give yourself the very best chance to succeed as a sender. And this applies to speeches you need to make, meetings you lead, your contributions to meetings, your individual discussions with people, your negotiations, your written communication. Start meetings well, set the tone, and leave the casual conversation and catch up for the end. Start your speeches well, even the informal ones. I often write down the first sentence of a speech word for word, and then just write key points for the rest. Because if I make a good non-fumbling start, it leaves a good impression and I feel more confident. There are many courses and videos on presentation skills and communication, and I'm not trying to replace those. But I do want to leave you with a strong appreciation for the importance of communication in leadership. It is a core skill. Work at it. In the next episode, we will look at optimizing your message, some good behavior science behind effective leadership messaging. See you then.